I just want to go over a couple of these problems just to get you started. If you've already done a couple problems from number one and you want to ignore me for this part of it, that's okay. But I am going to ask that when we get to number two that you just double check with me. So let's do this first one and number one together. What I need to do is pick a couple points. So I don't know, I like this one here and this one here. But you can use whatever 2 points on that line you want. And I'm going to draw my slope triangle. And remember, we talked about it doesn't matter whether you draw the slope triangle above the line or below the line. It's going to give you the same answer. And it doesn't matter how big the slope triangle is or where you draw it, you're going to get the same answer. All right, and let's count. Across the bottom here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And up the side, I've got 1, 2. And so we're going to do our slope. And I should ask myself, is this a positive or negative slope? It is positive. If I were walking along it from left to right, I'd be going uphill. So that's a positive slope. So let's write our fraction. It's rise over run. So 2 over 4. And can we simplify that? Can we divide both 2 and 4 by something? Yeah, they both divide by 2. So let's divide by 2 top and bottom. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the slope of this line is 1/2. Can I get everybody to check? If you're working ahead right now, can you flip back to that front page? Make sure you got 1/2 for that first slope. If you did not, go ahead and ask a question. Can I get you guys to go ahead and do the second one on your own if you haven't already? Let's see how you do on this. I'll put my answer up here in a second, but I want everybody to try it right now and just see. And then we're going to move on to number 2. We'll do a couple examples. Remember, you might be picking different points than me, and that's okay if so. Is this second one a positive or negative slope? So if I walk from left to right, I'd be going downhill, pretty steep downhill too. So it should be a pretty big number. So it's going to be negative. I got 6 is my rise and 2 is my run. So 6 over 2. And I think that simplifies. 6 divided by 2 would be 3. So -3 would be the final slope. Could you please check that second one on the front page? For those of you who've worked ahead, can you flip back and check that second one on the front page? Make sure you're getting a slope of -3, please. If you didn't include that negative in there, that is a very common mistake. Make sure you fix that. All right, we're going to move on down to number 2 right now. So wherever you're at right now, I need you working with me on number 2. If you're working ahead, just stop and come back. If you've already done this one, then let's check and make sure you did it right. These are a little bit more complex because we have a couple things that we need to do. You guys with me on this one down here, number 2? Please stick with me. Pretty please. Thank you. All right. So we have a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is find a slope just like we did. I got to pick a couple points. Now, I'll tell you in number 2, sometimes it's hard to find more than 1 point. So here's one. A lot of times you're going to have to go right off to the edge of the graph to find a second point. So I'm going to pick those 2. There's another one over here I could have used also. I'm going to use these 2. So let's go ahead and count and find our slope here. Anybody notice anything particular about this slope? It is a negative slope. And I'm going to tell you that that is going to be the most common mistake that you're going to make today. Okay. I bet everybody in here is going to make that mistake at least one time today, unless you're really looking for it. All right. So let's write this down. M equals, because M is the slope. We know it's going to be a negative slope. And it's going to be a fraction. You guys tell me, is it 5 over 3 or 3 over 5? 3 over 5. Okay, so we've got our slope, -3 over 5. But that's not what they asked us to do. They asked us to write an equation. So we need two things for the equation. We need our change, which is the slope. We just found that. We also need a starting value, which is the y-intercept. So please write down y-int. And what is my y-intercept for this one? Where does it cross the y-axis? It crosses right here at 2. So those are the two things that are going to go into our equation. We have not done this yet in this class anyways, so please pay attention. We're just going to put those together in the equation. The equation is going to look like this. Y equals mx plus b. So here's my m. I'll put the letter x after that. And then b is whatever your y-intercept is. So plus 2. This would be the final answer for number 2. For those of you who've worked ahead, could you please check and make sure for that first graph for number 2 that you have the equation y equals -3/5 x plus 2. If you have something different, please go ahead and fix it. Get my attention and ask a question if you need to. I'd like everybody to go ahead and do the second problem here in number 2 on your own. And I'll follow the same steps that we just did. I'll tell you again, this one's kind of tricky for finding points. There's really only 2 points that are on this graph, and they are these 2 points. So we're all going to probably have the same 2 points to make our slope triangle. See if you can write me an equation that says y equals something x plus or minus something else. Could you pick your head up, please? All right, so let me some counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 4. So if you've got that second one done, could you look up the board here? I'm about to write my equation, but can someone help me fix a mistake that I've made before I put it into my equation? What did I miss? Negative on the slope should be negative. You guys agree? Yep, it is so easy to leave that negative off. Don't get caught doing that today. All right, so y equals -7/4x. And then we could write plus -2, but plus a negative is the same as minus. So this looks better. Let's just put a -2 at the end. All right. All right, we're going to do one more together. We're going to skip a whole bunch, though. Could you guys flip to the 3rd page? We're going to look at number 4 together. Number 4 here. We're going to be graphing some lines. I do have rulers in the back of the room in this wooden box if you are interested. So in these ones, I'm giving you equations, and you're going to draw the lines. So this is just the reverse of what we just did. You see how there's 2 equations here? We're going to draw 2 lines, and we're going to figure out where those 2 lines cross. That's going to be our point of intersection. Now, we have not done this, so please stick with me as we do this. We're doing number 4, part A. You guys with me? Okay, I'm going to give you a huge hint right now, and those of you who listen to my advice are going to do significantly better on our test than those of you who choose not to follow this advice. Okay, but I can tell you from experience, even though that's true, some people are still going to say, no, I'm not going to take the extra 10 seconds it takes to do this. Guys, can I get your attention, please? Those of you who are working on this, I know you've probably seen this before and you're probably doing it right, but I'm gonna tell you, you're probably gonna make mistakes on about a quarter of these. Okay, so pay attention here. Check this out. Decide whether or not you want to do it, but I'm going to tell you for a fact that those of you who do this are going to get better grades on our next test than those who do not. Okay, and here's the thing I'm going to ask you to do. When you're graphing a line, I want you to look at the slope, and off to the side, not on the graph, off to the side, I want you to draw an arrow that's pointing in the correct direction for that slope. This one's a negative slope, so it should be going downhill from left to right. Can I get you guys to do this right now for part A? Just right off to the side there, draw me an arrow that's pointing downhill. And then using that arrow, put a horizontal and a vertical line on there so that you can make a little slope triangle. And label that slope triangle with the numbers 1 and 2. Make sure you get the 1 in the right spot and the 2 in the right spot. It's rise over run. So my rise is 1, that should go up and down. My run is 2, that should go in left and right. The people who take the time to draw this little triangle, and it literally takes 5 seconds to do this, are going to get a better grade on our test because you're going to make fewer mistakes if you take the time to do this. I would love for everybody to do this. Okay, but I know for a fact from past experience that some of you are going to be like, no, I can't spare those extra 5 seconds. My day is just way too busy. So, all right, now we're going to actually graph it. This -5 here is our y-intercept. Could you guys find -5 on your y-axis and draw me a dot, please? -5 would be right there. Just draw a point right there at -5. And from that point here at -5, we're going to do our slope. And I've got my little triangle drawn up here, but you can't really see it. So let me redraw it here. That was my slope triangle. It was a 1 and a 2. So put your pencil down at that point and count down 1 and over 2. Draw a new point. And then from there, just do the same thing. Count down 1 and over 2 and draw a point. Down 1 over 2. That gets us to the edge of the graph. When we're drawing these, I want you to go to both edges of the graph. So now go back to your original point and just do the opposite. Instead of going down and to the right, go up and to the left. So up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. And those points should fall into a straight line with the other points that you drew. And then you can connect them. You can freehand it or use a ruler again. You guys are welcome to the rulers in the back of the room if you like. I will get a little picky about this. I want to see arrowheads at the end of the line because this line would continue going in both directions forever and ever and ever. Make sure you put those arrowheads on there. All right, there's one of our lines. We got one more line to draw. Any questions on this one? All right, one more time. Humor me on this. This is a positive slope, so draw me an arrow that's going up and to the right. Off to the side in your margin, draw me an arrow going up and to the right, and make it into a slope triangle by drawing a horizontal and a vertical line on it. And put those numbers on those two lines, the 3 and the 2. Make sure you get them in the right place. It's rise over run. The 3 is the rise, the 2 is the run. All right, where are we going to start our first point this time around? It's a terrible 3. So our y-intercept this time around is +3. So draw your first point on the y-axis at +3. And then from that point, I want you to count up 3 and over 2. Up 3 and over 2. Counting 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2 over. And then repeat 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's going to get me off my graph. So that's as far as I can go that way. So now I'm going to back it up. I'll go down 3 and over 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 2, 3, 1, 2. And that's as far as I can go that way. And I will draw my line. Arrowheads on both ends. There's one final thing we got to do to wrap this up. They want us to find the point of intersection. That's the point where these two lines are going to cross. When we give a point, we're always going to give an X and a Y coordinate. What's the X coordinate of that point right there? -4. It lines on the X axis, it lines up with -4. And on the Y axis, it lines up with -3. So -4 comma -3 is our point of intersection, and we're done with that one. All right, folks, your job today is to finish this packet in class. Please raise your hand to get my attention once you've finished it. I'm going to look it over. If there's anything that's incorrect, I'm going to ask you to fix it. Please be careful with your slopes, your positive and negative slopes. First period, I had people that had to fix like 6 or 8 different graphs because they were sloppy with their slopes, okay? Once you're finished with this, you can start on today's assignment. And today's assignment is on the back of our packet. It's 2.1.3, and that'll be due on Thursday. All right, those of you who work diligently today should have plenty of time to start and maybe even finish today's assignment. Get my attention if you've got questions. Folks, I expect you to be working during our time today, okay? I'll be around to answer questions. Give me just a couple of minutes.